Star Trek, Primitive Passenger, Season 3, Episode 6, Blind Spots. The MPOC, nor Operations Center buzzed with activity as Nolan Mercer stood before a massive holographic display. The three-dimensional model of space pulsed with vibrant colors, each hue representing different aspects of Vorpal Syndicate activity. Nolan's eyes narrowed as he studied the patterns, his posture tense with concentration. "Right here," Nolan began, gesturing to a cluster of red dots. "The Vorpal Syndicate's operations are heavily concentrated in these sectors. They're not just random attacks, there's a method to their madness." Around the room, faces both familiar and new focused intently on the display. Trill, Nolan's Orion intelligence officer, leaned forward, her green skin glowing in the light of the hologram. Beside her, Vex's Trill spots seemed to shimmer as he jotted notes on a pad. On the view screens surrounding the room, the four generals, Grayson, Talera, Koth, and Jean Dar, watched with rapt attention. Their day and night crews could be seen in the background, a constant reminder of the round-the-clock effort being poured into this operation. Ilara stepped closer to the hologram, her brow furrowed in thought. "The pattern suggests they're stockpiling resources," she observed. "But for what purpose?" Nolan nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "That's the million-credit question, isn't it? They're gathering enough raw materials to build a small fleet, or one very big ship." Grayson's gruff voice came through the comm system. "Could be a space station. Something to rival Pot Nor, perhaps." "Possible," Nolan conceded. "But why go to such lengths to keep it hidden?" "No, I think we're dealing with something far more dangerous." Talara, her Vulcan features impassive, spoke up. "Logic dictates that such secrecy implies a weapon of significant magnitude." A murmur rippled through the assembled crew. Koth, the Klingon general, let out a low growl. "Then we must strike now, before they can complete their weapon." Nolan held up a hand, silencing the growing chatter. "We can't rush in blind. We need more information." He turned to Trill and Vex. "What have you two uncovered from our intelligence network?" Trill stepped forward, her movements graceful despite the tension in the room. "We've picked up chatter about a central figure in the Syndicate. They call him the Vorpal, apparently. He's more than just a leader. Some of our sources speak of him with an almost religious reverence." Vex nodded, adding, "There are also whispers of some kind of biohacking component to their operations. We're not sure what it means yet, but it's a recurring theme in the intel we're gathering." Nolan absorbed this information, his mind turning over the possibilities. "All right," he said finally. "We need to focus our efforts on uncovering the identity of this Vorpal character. He seems to be the key to this whole operation." He turned back to the holographic display, manipulating it to zoom in on a particular sector. "Jean Dar, I want your team to concentrate on this area. It's the most recent hotspot of Vorpal activity. See if you can intercept any of their shipments. We need to know exactly what they're transporting." Jean Dar, an Andorian with piercing blue eyes, nodded sharply. "Understood, sir. We'll get it done." As Nolan continued to issue orders, the atmosphere in the room crackled with determination. They were up against a formidable enemy, but Nolan Mercer and his unlikely crew were ready for the challenge. The hunt for the Vorpal Syndicate was on, and the fate of the quadrant hung in the balance. A vibrant holographic display flickers to life above the bustling MPOC, Nor Promenade. The image of a sleek purple bottle materializes, accompanied by bold lettering. "Mercer's Purple Juice." A deep, resonant voice booms. "Last as long as Mercer." As the tagline fades, text begins to scroll rapidly across the bottom of the advertisement. The list of disclaimers seems endless, a blur of legal jargon and warnings. Below the hovering ad, Nolan Mercer strolls along the promenade, his gait casual but his eyes alert. As he rounds a corner, he nearly collides with Trill, his Orion intelligence officer. "Oh, Mr. Mercer," Trill exclaims, her green skin flushing a darker shade. "I didn't see you there." Nolan's usual crooked half-smile appeared. No harm done. How's our intel looking? As Trill opens her mouth to respond, she fumbles with her pad, sending it clattering to the deck. Both she and Nolan crouch to retrieve it, their hands brushing as they reach for the device. Things are progressing, Trill murmurs, her voice low. Her eyes lock with Nolan's, conveying more than her words. There's a blind spot, Nolan. Be careful. Nolan's brow furrows slightly as he hands her the pad. I always am, he replies, his tone light but his expression serious. Trill straightens, smoothing her uniform. I should go. Lots to analyze. With a final, meaningful glance, she turns and strides away, leaving Nolan standing alone beneath the still-scrolling advertisement. As Trill disappears into the crowd, the list of disclaimers finally concludes. The holographic display resets, once again proclaiming, Mercer's Purple Juice, last as long as Mercer. Nolan shakes his head and laughs as he continues on his way, the encounter with Trill weighing heavily on his mind. Cope. The soft hum of machinery filled Nolan's quarters as he tossed various items into a duffel bag. Ilara leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed, watching him with a mixture of amusement and concern. You know, for a quick run to the Delta Quadrant, you're packing an awful lot of cologne, Ilara observed, her tone dry. Nolan paused, a bottle of aftershave in hand. Can't a man smell nice while procuring vital supplies? Ilara rolled her eyes. Oh, please. The only thing you're procuring is a rendezvous with a certain former Borg. I have no idea what you're talking about, Nolan replied, failing to suppress a grin. And I'm sure the extra case of Twexeldenon fruit juice in the hold is purely for trade purposes. Nolan zipped up his bag, slinging it over his shoulder. You know me, always thinking about business. As they made their way to the shuttle bay, Ilara's tone grew more serious. Nolan, your timing couldn't be worse. We're in the middle of a crisis with the Vorpal Syndicate. You're needed here. Nolan sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know. Everybody's on task with the Vorpal. We'll get there. But I promised Zira I'd help with their defense grid. It'll only be a few days. A few days too many, Ilara muttered. You need to find the local girlfriend, Mercer. Someone who doesn't require interquadrant travel for a booty call. Nolan stopped in his tracks, turning to face Ilara. He looked her over, raised an eyebrow. Ilara, are you volunteering? He dropped his bag. Ilara glanced down. Her eyelids fluttered, her equivalent of a blush. In your dreams, Mercer. In your dreams. Only every night, Nolan quipped with a wink. They reached the last of the old Zalaxian battle cruisers. They don't make 'em like this anymore, Nolan said. She's got great bones. The craft gleaming under the bay lights. As he began the pre-flight sequence, Ilara's voice softened. Just be careful out there, okay? And hurry back. I've got a bad feeling about this Vorpal business. I always come back. You know that. Nolan paused, meeting Ilara's gaze. Besides, the Vorpal's not ready to die yet. His time will come. You always seem to have a sense about these things, Ilara replied, a hint of affection in her voice. No one is better at knowing when to take that final shot. With a final mock salute, Nolan sealed the cruiser's hatch. Ilara stepped back, watching as the massive craft eased away from the mooring clamps and blinked out of the bay. Ilara couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this quick run was going to be anything but simple. He always says, don't take a knife to a gunfight, she pondered. By all means, take a warship to your little horizontal happy hour. Tryst. The dingy corridors of the space station echoed with the muffled sounds of illicit deals and hushed arguments. Nolan moved through the shadows, his hand never far from his concealed weapon. He slipped into a dimly lit alcove where a hooded figure awaited. Mercer, the merchant growled, his voice barely above a whisper. Didn't expect to see you back so soon. Nolan leaned against the grimy wall, his eyes scanning their surroundings. What have you got for me, Craze? Kraz glanced nervously over his shoulder before continuing. Business has picked up since you ran off those pirate scum. but not everyone's happy about it. Oh? Nolan raised an eyebrow, encouraging the merchant to elaborate. The Valkyrians, Kraz spat. They're furious. Those pirates were lining Valkyrian pockets with privateer booty. Plus, now they've lost their main supplier of slave labor for the mines. Nolan's jaw clenched. Seriously, how many slaves are we talking about? Kraz's eyes darted left and right before he leaned in closer. Rumors say as many as 10,000 on Valkyria Prime alone. Borg, non-Borg, doesn't matter to them. If it can swing a pick, they'll chain it up. Damn, it's like I can't seem to get ahead of them, Nolan muttered. Any idea where they're getting their slaves now? The merchant shrugged. Word is they're desperate, offering triple the going rate for any laborers they can get their hands on. But without the pirates' reach, pickings are slim. Nolan nodded, processing the information. Anything else I should know? But I'd watch my back if I were you, Mercer. You've made some powerful enemies. As the merchant melted into the shadows, Nolan stood alone in the alcove, his mind clicking through the potential implications of this new information. The situation was more complex than he'd anticipated, and the tendrils of the pirates' old network seemed to reach further than he'd imagined. Psst! The neon lights of Starbase cast an ethereal glow on Zira's face as she leaned against the viewport, watching ships come and go. The door chimed, and her heart skipped a beat, knowing who it was before she even turned around. Nolan, she said softly, her voice a melody of warmth and longing. He stepped inside, his familiar crooked smile in place, eyes twinkling with affection. Hey, beautiful. Heard you were in the sector. For a moment they just looked at each other, drinking in the sight. The air crackled with unspoken words and shared memories. I've missed you, Zira whispered, taking a step closer. Nolan closed the distance between them, cupping her face gently. I've missed you too, more than I can say. As if drawn by some invisible force, they moved together, lips meeting in a kiss that was equal parts tender and passionate. It felt like coming home, something that pulled Nolan like a moth to a distant flame. It was this that brought him back to Zira. Later, tangled in the sheets of the station's guest quarters, Zira traced idle patterns on Nolan's chest. The familiarity was there, the physical and emotional connection as strong as ever. But beneath the surface, something had shifted. Tell me about your adventures, Zira murmured, looking up at him with genuine interest. What trouble has the great Nolan Mercer been getting into? Nolan chuckled, his hand running through her hair. Oh, just the usual, blowing up stuff, breaking things, accidentally starting small wars. Zira laughed, the sound like music to Nolan's ears. Just another day on the treadmill, then? Pretty much, he grinned, pulling her closer. He took a deep breath, and as he let it out, this moment, right here. This is what I ache for, no matter what else I'm doing. They lay there in comfortable silence, savoring each other's presence. Both were acutely aware of the outside pressures, but for now, they pushed those thoughts aside. You're leaving again, aren't you? Zira finally asked, her voice soft but understanding. Nolan sighed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You know me too well. There's always another fire to put out, another pirate to kick in the teeth. Zira nodded, a bittersweet smile playing on her lips. I do know you, Nolan Mercer. It's one of the reasons I care for you so much. And yet you put up with me anyway, Nolan teased gently. Someone has to, Zira retorted, her eyes sparkling with affection. As Nolan prepared to leave, Zira caught his hand, pulling him back for one more embrace. The next time you're in the sector, Nolan's expression softened. I'll find you. He squeezed her hard, his arms pressing her hard against his body. Yes, come find me, Zira's smile radiant. He grinned, pulling her in for one last, lingering kiss. Count on it. Watching him go, Zira felt a complex mix of emotions. The ache of separation was there, but so was a warm glow of happiness from their time together. She knew there would be other encounters, other moments stolen from the chaos of the universe. On the cruiser, Nolan began running battle simulations. The warmth of Zira's touch lingered, a comforting presence as he faced the challenges ahead. He allowed himself one last moment of reflection on their time together before focusing on the task at hand. The stars elongated as he engaged the blink drive, a blinding flash leaving behind one adventure and hurtling toward the next. But he carried with him a renewed sense of warmth and the knowledge that someone in this galaxy was waiting for his return. The Zalaxian battlecruiser dropped out of blink with weapons hot and auto-targeting systems engaged, materializing in the midst of Valkyria Prime's orbital defense grid. Alarms lights flashed all across the console as Nolan hammered at the controls. The cruiser's weapons blazed to life, disruptor energy slicing through space. The first satellite exploded in a brilliant flash, quickly followed by two more. Valkyrian ships scrambled to respond, their formation chaotic in the face of the sudden assault. Nolan maneuvered the cruiser, dodging incoming fire while continuing his assault on the planetary defenses. A Valkyrian frigate moved to intercept, only to be caught in a devastating barrage from the cruiser's aft cannons. "Come on, you bastards," Nolan growled, diving the ship into the heart of the Valkyrian fleet. "Give me what you got." The space around Valkyria Prime had erupted into chaos. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers, debris spinning wildly as it poured into the atmosphere, creating glowing streaks across the sky. Nolan's ship pounded through it all, a deadly, blunt instrument aglow in the destruction. As the last defense platform crumbled, Nolan dropped shields and diverted power to the transporters. The cruiser's transporter systems hummed to life, beaming aboard thousands of individuals from the planet's mines. The massive holds began to fill with a mix of species, former Borg drones, alien slaves, and even some Valkyrian guards and overseers. Nolan kept the ship moving, avoiding the remaining Valkyrian vessels as the transporters worked overtime. Nolan glanced at his view screen, seeing pushing and shoving amongst the retrieved masses. The slaves were turning on the guards, ripping them limb from limb. "Fuck 'em up," Nolan breathed. As the last of the captives materialized aboard, Nolan engaged the blink drive. The cruiser vanished, leaving behind a devastated orbital defense system and a confused, angry Valkyrian fleet. In the aftermath, Nolan made his way through the holds, crowded with rescued individuals. The air was thick with tension, fear, and the lingering ozone smell of recent violence. A former Borg drone approached him, the scars from his cybernetic implants glinting in the harsh light. "You are Mercer," the drone stated, its voice a mixture of organic and synthetic tones. "The one who shakes even the collective." Nolan raised an eyebrow, surprised by the direct address. "That's right. And you are?" The alien lifted his hands. "Who knows, really? We were all something else. Now we're whatever this is." The drone replied, gesturing down at himself. "You know the collective is aware of you, Mercer. They have been since you created the Necrit Expanse." Nolan's eyes widened. The Borg know about that. It was over 100 years ago. The drone nodded mechanically. "The collective considers you chaos, an outlier they cannot account for in any of their algorithms or projections. Some quantum forecast matrices flag you as the biggest threat to the collective." Nolan let out a low whistle, genuinely taken aback. "I had no idea. I never thought the Borg even knew I existed." "Very much so, Mercer. Many years of computations have been spent trying to solve the Mercer conundrum. They're afraid to assimilate you, afraid your longevity would one day make you king of the Borgs." His face twisted into what might pass for a smile. "Since you and you alone survived the event that created the Expanse, they are convinced you're some sort of unkillable peculiarity, strangely increasing the drive to destroy you." Nolan thanked the former drone for the information. "Stay with this group." Nolan felt like long needles were being pushed down through his body, sharp pains of realization that he was Borg Enemy 1, a small panic deep inside, that he can just barely push down for the moment. "There's one other thing you should know," the drone replied. The inverse quantum flux of a chronoton-infused tachyon beam can destabilize nanoorganic fusion at a subatomic level, causing a cascading molecular breakdown in hybrid systems. Nolan blinked, the technical jargon washing over him. Thanks. I'll keep that in mind. As the drone moved away, Nolan shook his head, filing away the information for later. He made his way to the bridge, setting coordinates for a safe spot near Zira's planet. Once there, Nolan opened a communication channel to the planet's local council. "This is Nolan Mercer. I'm approaching your system with a ship full of refugees who will need significant assistance. Are you able to receive them?" A voice crackled back over the comm. "Yes, Mr. Mercer. We've been expanding our operations as discussed with Zira. We're ready to receive them." Nolan nodded to himself, relief washing over him. "Good. I'm initiating transport now. These people have been through hell. Treat them well. As most of us have, Mercer." The councilman tilted his bald head, showing the deep scars of assimilation. "We welcome our free brothers and sisters with open arms." As the refugees began beaming down to the planet's surface, Nolan leaned back in his chair, exhaustion finally catching up with him. The battle, the rescue, the surprising revelation from the Borg drone, it all swirled in his mind. He'd come to the Delta Quadrant for a quick visit with Zira, and ended up freeing thousands of slaves and learning he was on the Borg's radar. "I need a nap," he said grumpily. Like a greyhound who'd spent all his adrenaline, Nolan was crashing. As the last of the refugees transported away, Nolan set course for him, Pot Nor. The Vorpal Syndicate was still out there, and he, Ilara, would be waiting impatiently. The MPOC. Nor Promenade bustled with activity as a garish holographic advertisement flickered to life overhead. A strikingly beautiful woman with an exaggerated expression of surprise and delight filled the display. "Wow," she exclaimed, her voice breathy and excited. "You can last as long as Mercer." As the woman's beaming face faded, a rapid scroll of text began to roll across the bottom of the ad, an endless stream of legal disclaimers rushing by too quickly for anyone to read. Below this spectacle, Ilara walked along the promenade, her form exquisite compared with the station's usual rabble. As she rounded a corner, she nearly collided with Trill, her Orion intelligence officer. "Oh, Ilara," Trill exclaimed, her green skin flushing a darker shade. "I didn't see you there." Ilara's face lit up with a bright smile. "Problem? How are things going in Intel this morning?" As Trill opened her mouth to respond, she fumbled with her pad, sending it clattering to the deck. Both she and Ilara crouched to retrieve it, their hands brushing as they reached for the device. "Things are progressing," Trill murmured, her voice low, her eyes locked with Ilara's, conveying more than her words. "There's a blind spot, Ilara. Be careful." Ilara smiled as she handed the pad back to Trill, her fingers lingering for a moment longer than necessary. "I always am," she replied, her tone light but her expression serious. Trill straightened, smoothing her uniform. "I should go. Lots to analyze." With a final, meaningful glance, she turned and strode away, leaving Ilara standing alone beneath the still-scrolling advertisement. As Trill disappeared into the crowd, the list of disclaimers finally concluded. The holographic display reset, once again proclaiming the virtues of Mercer's purple juice. As Ilara continued on her way, the encounter with Trill lingering in her mind. An alarm beeped at the ops console as MPOC, Nora's sensors, detected an unexpected arrival. A massive, battered shipping container blinked into existence near the station, its hull scored with plasma burns and impact craters. "Unknown container, bearing 035, the docking control officer announced, his voice tense. "Engaging tractor beam." The container drifted slowly toward the station, guided by the blue glow of the tractor beam. As it approached the docking bay, Ilara came running, her face set with concern. "Status report," she demanded. A Zalaxian engineer looked up from his console. "No life signs detected, but there's significant interference." "Could be anything in there." Ilara nodded grimly. "Only Nolan, could have initiated the blink. Prepare for the worst. Have emergency crews standing by. As the container settled into place with a resounding clang, the docking bay crew moved into action. Scanners whirred, probing for any sign of danger. Finding nothing immediately threatening, they began the process of opening the massive doors. With a hiss of escaping air, the container's seal broke. As the doors slowly parted, Alara stepped forward, her holographic heart pounding despite its artificial nature. By the stars, someone gasped as the interior came into view. There, amidst a tangle of torn metal and sparking wires, lay Nolan Mercer. His body was crumpled, clothes scorched and tattered. A thin trail of blood trickled from a gash on his head. "Nolan," Alara cried, rushing forward. The emergency crew, learning that restraining a hologram is nearly impossible. "Stand clear, ma'am," a Bjorn medic ordered. "We need to assess the situation." Alara watched, feeling helpless, as the medical team swarmed around Nolan's still form. Their tricorders, chirping and blinking, painting a grim picture of his condition. "Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, severe plasma burns," the lead medic reported. "We need to get him to medical immediately." With practiced efficiency, they secured Nolan to a stretcher. In a shimmer of light, he vanished, transported directly to the station's medical facilities. As the docking bay erupted into a flurry of activity, security teams searching the container, engineers assessing the damage. Alara stood motionless, her eyes fixed on the spot where Nolan had lain. "What happened to you out there?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the chaos. With a determined set to her shoulders, Alara turned and strode out of the docking bay. Whatever had befallen Nolan, she was determined to get to the bottom of it. And heaven help anyone who stood in her way. The soft beeping of medical equipment filled the air as Nolan lay motionless on the bio-bed, his battered body enveloped in the soft blue glow of the regenerative field. Alara sat beside him, her holographic form a stark contrast to the clinical surroundings. Suddenly, Nolan's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. Alara leaned forward, taking his hand in hers. "I tried," Nolan whispered, his voice barely audible. Tears welled up in his eyes, streaming down toward his ears. "It's okay, Nolan. Just rest now," Alara soothed, squeezing his hand gently. Her voice was soft, filled with a tenderness rarely heard in her usual efficient tone. Nolan's eyes darted around, as if still seeing the battle. "The Valkyrian fleet, they caught up with me before I could blink out. You're safe now. I'm here." Alara reassured him, her thumb tracing small circles on the back of his hand. A weak smile flickered across Nolan's face. "They're all free, Alara. They all made it." His voice trailed off as his eyes closed once more, slipping back into unconsciousness. Alara remained seated, her hand still clasping Nolan's. She watched the rise and fall of his chest, each breath a reminder of his fragile mortality. Despite all their adventures, all the near misses and daring escapes, she had never seen him quite this broken. The weight of centuries seemed to settle on her holographic shoulders as she contemplated the possibility of losing him. How many times had she waited like this, wondering if he would pull through? And yet, each time felt like the first, the fear just as raw and overwhelming. "Come on, Nolan," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the medical equipment. "We still have so much to do." As the hours ticked by, Alara remained at his bedside, her hand never leaving Nolan's. She was an AI, capable of running the entire station single-handedly, but in this moment her entire existence narrowed to this room, this bed, this man who had become the center of her world. The medical bay fell quiet, save for the steady beep of the monitors, a rhythmic reminder that, for now at least, Nolan Mercer was still with him. And as long as that heart kept beating, Alara knew there was hope. Quaint, Nolan's quarters, dimly lit. Nolan sits at his desk awkwardly in a version of a hospital gown, an IV in one arm, tubes in his nose, Alara beside him. They're reviewing footage from the promenade encounters with Trill. Nolan rubs his temples. This is too weird to be a coincidence. We need answers. Ilara nods. Agreed. But how do we? A chirp from the comm system interrupts. Nolan, it's Trill. I need to talk to you. Both of you. Nolan and Ilara exchange glances. Nolan hits the comm. Come on in. Trill enters, looking nervous. She takes a deep breath. I haven't been entirely honest with you. Either of you. Nolan leans back, groans as he moves. All right, spill it, kid. He pushed out with a voice like the sound of grinding iridium ore. Trill stood her ground. I'm not just your intelligence officer. She paused to make the point. Nolan absently reached for his blaster, which surprisingly wasn't a part of his hospital attire. Ilara moved so she could put herself between Nolan and Trill. I'm part of an intelligence network. We've been tracking the Vorpal Syndicate's movements for several years. Trill stops pacing. Nolan's voice is low, controlled. Intelligence network, he said in a flat tone. Let me guess. The Orion Syndicate. Trill shakes her head. No, we're independent. A coalition of traders, ex-intelligence operatives, even some Starfleet. We saw the Vorpal threat several years before anyone else did. She looked at each of them. We call ourselves Blind Spot, but it's nothing official. Ilara steps to Trill. And you've been reporting on Nolan's activities this whole time, because we weren't sure who to trust. The Vorpal has infiltrated so many organizations, but after seeing how you two work, how you fight them, I knew I had to take a chance. She looked warmly at Ilara. I've been authorized to share our findings and intel with you. I've been pushing for as much for months. Nolan's expression softened slightly. What kind of intelligence are we talking about? Trill produces a Cardassian data rod, coordinates, communication logs, possible identities of high-ranking operatives who have been compromised by the Vorpal, including some that might shock you. As Nolan takes the data rod, any more of my people working for you or Blind Spot? Any other divided loyalties out there? Not that I'm aware of, and more importantly, we have been unable to find any compromised individuals within your hierarchy and management cadre. We'll deal with the Vorpal first. But after that, he looks at Trill, his expression hard. We're going to have a long talk about loyalty and what happens to those who betray it. Trill nods, understanding the implicit threat. Fair enough. As Nolan plugs the data rod into the console, the camera pans out, showing the three of them gathered around the desk, the soft glow of the data illuminating their faces. Fire. Epilogue. The MPOC, nor promenade, bustles with activity as Nolan, still looking a bit worse for wear, walks slowly alongside Ilara. They pass by a garish holographic advertisement for Mercer's purple juice. Nolan grins proudly. See? I told you it would be a hit. Ilara rolls her eyes. I still can't believe you commercialized that stuff so quickly. What exactly is in it, anyway? Trade secret, Nolan winks. But I can assure you, it works wonders. As they turn a corner, they nearly collide with Trill, who's holding a bottle of the purple liquid. Oh, Mr. Mercer, Ilara, Trill stammers, her green skin flushing a deeper shade. I was just, Nolan's grin widens. Enjoying some purple juice, Trill? And please call me Nolan. Trill nods, a bit flustered. It's quite invigorating. Ilara glances between them, an amused smile playing on her lips. You know, Nolan, I did suggest finding a local girlfriend. Nolan coughed, caught off guard. Trill's eyes widen, and she takes an up-and-down inventory of Nolan's person. I should go, Trill says quickly. Lots of intel to analyze. As she hurries away, Nolan turns to Ilara. That was mean. Ilara shrugs, still smiling. Just looking out for your well-being, boss. Besides, green and purple make quite a striking combination, don't you think? Nolan shakes his head, chuckling despite himself. You're impossible. How am I supposed to get an image like that out of my head? Gosh, I can't begin to imagine. Ilara quips melodically, knowing full well Nolan's penchant for trill. I guess you and Trill will just have to work it out, giving rhythmic definition to those last 3 words with a laugh. You're so bad, Nolan groaned, still walking like a 400-year-old man. Besides, I think she likes you more. I learned from the best, she shot back. Don't you think you're up to some hard negotiations, pounding out the details, getting some really good feedback in an orgy of unparalleled negotiations? She trailed off, continuing her inappropriate off-color tirade as they walked along in the distance on the promenade.